All right, we are going live now. It's starting. It hasn't quite started just yet.
All right, let me know when.
All right. And we're live now, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Janice. Welcome everybody to the October 12th CVTA Technical Advisory Committee meeting. We will now have a roll call and certification of the quorum.
Okay. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here.
Charles City County, Miss Russell. Chesterfield County, Miss Smith. Miss Walker. Goochland County, Mr. Campbell.
I'm here, and I just noticed in the chat that Chessa is here, but I guess not set up as a panelist.
I got you. Let me take care of that really quick. Hold on one second.
She's on her way in. I did it.
Okay, got you. We will go to Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez. Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Mr. Ure.
Here.
Ms. Meidler.
Here.
New Kent County, Mr. Stauder.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine.
Here.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
She's joining right now.
Okay, well, I'll go back. Mr. Bridewell. And I'll go back to New Kent County, Ms. Ledoux. DRPT, Mr. Brule.
I'm here.
Ms. Dubinsky. VDOT, Mr. Mann. Mr. Riblett.
I'm here.
Virginia Port Authority, Ms. Nelson.
Here.
GRTC, Ms. Robinson.
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Dean. And Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
I am here, and if you don't mind, let's circle back one more time. There are a number of people that joined.
Okay, we have Chesterfield County, Ms. Walker.
Here.
And for Goochland, do we have Mr. Coleman?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. And if you'll bear with me, I'll pull up my list and see if we need to. Did we get City of Richmond, Ms. Clark?
Here.
Okay, Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Flagg.
Here.
Okay.
Is that everyone?
Rhonda Russell, Charles City is present.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Russell. I believe according to what I'm looking at on the screen, I believe I have everybody. If I've missed somebody, let me know and we'll circle back. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the roll call and we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Janice. So I will mention this is a 100% virtual meeting. There is information on the website and actually on the current YouTube screen regarding public participation. So that is available for anybody interested in providing public comment. Next item would be consideration of amendments to the action meeting agenda. Chet, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. Next item 2, approval of the September 13th, 2021 CVTA TAC action meeting minutes, which are included on page 3 of the agenda. So if everybody's had a chance to review, anybody have any corrections? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion. Don't everybody speak at once.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Russell. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Verdunis. So a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Great, thank you. Next item, public comment period. Do we have anybody registered to provide public comment or anybody in the YouTube?
We do not have anyone registered to provide public comment. We do have a handful of folks that are signed in as attendees. If anyone has who's an attendee has questions, you should be able to use the Q&A function to provide your questions. Mr. Chair, if it's okay, let's wait 30 seconds and see if anybody submits anything.
Very good. All right, thus far, no questions. If anybody has a question throughout the meeting, please enter in the Q&A. Next item is the CVTA TAC Chairman's Report. I have no items to report under this TAC meeting, which moves us to item 5, CVTA TAC staff update. Chet, you're going to start out with that?
Yes, sir. We have the Personnel Committee continues to meet to work out the next steps in staffing for the CVTA. There is an ongoing effort chaired by Mr. Spoonhour from Goochland County, working with the human resources directors from each of our jurisdictions, and they've been referred to as the HR Roundtable, to develop options for the authority to consider, and next steps is in the works. So I think there has been a first draft of a position description that's been developed, but the Personnel Committee has not yet made a final recommendation on what to move forward to the authority. So I think there will be an ongoing effort, and I believe there's an update with the Finance Committee tomorrow as well on this effort. So TAC members, I would say stay tuned or check directly with your jurisdictions if you can get an update from the horse's mouth, as they say, with your HR directors. I would expect action on this over the next few months. The Finance Committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow, and the work that the Finance Committee is considering includes an update from the Personnel Committee, a review. It's a discussion item on RFPs for financial advisory services and bond counsel. And this is going to be an update from the finance directors working group on the process of evaluating the RFPs and recommendations for moving that process forward. And then there is new business to discuss the FY 2021 financial audit, where it is an action item where members are going to be asked to recommend the audit report be approved by the full authority. And we'll be providing an update on, like the last item, we'll be providing an update on this meeting to the Finance Committee and any outcomes of our action today that need their consideration. And then the last item, I believe 5C, I think we can cover that under its own item under number 7, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chet. Any questions on any of those updates before we move on to item 6? Okay, next item, regional project prioritization, next steps. So as everyone's probably aware, at the September 24th full authority meeting, they approved the framework project selection and allocation document. Thank you, Chessa, for your in-depth presentation to the group. There was a lot of good questions and discussion from the authority members, and like I said, it did get approved. The final approved document is included in the agenda package for today. So we now have a separate approved standalone document that TAC members can share with their respective agencies and jurisdictions. So with that, I don't know how much we need to go into depth on this, Chet, and I know Chess is on to help with any questions before we kind of move on to the next steps.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure how much detail there needs to be. I guess my suggestion would be, is this an appropriate time to open the floor if anybody has any questions on the framework document itself?
Sure. I mean, most of the folks on here were familiar with the development of the framework document. Many were involved in the subcommittee that worked on it. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, now would be a good time to ask. All right, hearing none, move into next steps.
Yes, I'm going to share, if I can make it work, an update from, this is a draft proposal on next steps in the prioritization process and how each committee may be involved. Let's see if I can get it to work. Can everybody see the document that says CVTA at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is a 2-page overview. And again, as I said, it's draft. We haven't distributed this yet, but we can certainly do that after the meeting. The first page here is a general overview, which I pulled directly from the project selection allocation framework. It's an overview of the funding allocations, where the revenues come from, and how the division of funds is divided, the 3 different silos, as we all are aware. So we've got 15% to GRTC, 50% to the locals, and then 35% for regional transportation projects. And the 35% is what we're focused on. So we know that it's projected to generate roughly 65 million a year in that 35% pot, or close to 400 million over a 6-year period. And one of the things the authority has to do is to develop a prioritization process based on analysis and considers the benefits of a project relative to its cost, which is what the framework sets out to do. So we have a 4-step process. And again, this is all pulled from the framework, but it's just simplified in half a page. The first step is an annual submission of applications, so to speak, for individual projects. The next step is screening, which is done by staff initially, and then TAC for review and recommendation. The third step is scoring and ranking, where staff would score and rank all projects except for bridges using 3 different performance measures: safety, mobility, and then the combination of accessibility measures. that was outlined in the framework. And then bridge projects are evaluated using state of good repair criteria. The fourth step in the process is selection. So this is a multi-phase step where staff would provide the scored and ranked projects within each category. And that's the uniqueness of this process. Finance would provide 6 years of projected funding allocations. Staff would then develop that funding scenario, a proposal on how the projects that are scored and ranked would be laid out across those 6 years. TAC would review the funding scenario and recommend public review of the 6-year scenario. And then the authority itself would open that public review, manage the process, and then take action on selection and allocation following the public review period. None of this is new information. This was all in the framework document. So that brings us to the discussion for today. What we're looking at is, as we've watched the process unfold, the authority has committed to prioritize the importance of the fall line, as well as priority projects for the non-fall line members of the authority, meaning that those jurisdictions where the fall line does not pass through. So what we're looking at is essentially a first run allocation process where those priorities are considered following the scoring. So we would look at scoring and ranking the projects and then seeing where those priorities fall within that scoring and ranking, and moving this process forward through the authority. And I'm going to go over this part in more detail and then come back to what we'll call phase 2 of this first year. So phase 1, we're looking at the priorities that the authority has set forth. So today, looking at, this is October 12th, so we're looking at hopefully getting some direction on moving forward with scoring and ranking the projects from the Connect RVA 2045 plan as a foundation. We have that essentially completed, so that's good, and that includes, I believe, all of the projects that were considered to be the important projects to focus on by the authority. We want to go back through once those projects are scored and ranked according to the 3 different performance measure categories, and see where those priority projects sit in that ranking. If it's the will of the body today, staff would then work with finance to develop that budget based on 2 full fiscal years, so that we would be able to work with the estimated revenues over the first 2 years to put into those priority projects. Assuming that goes well, tomorrow at the Finance Committee meeting, we would provide an overview of next steps, basically going through this outline again, where we would then work through items B through F under number 2, work with VDOT to get an update on estimates for fall line segments. We know from the last authority meeting that is still underway, the refining of estimates and understanding what the ending segments are going to be. We would then discuss the available funds in relation to the costs of the projects, and discuss the process for allocation of funds to the 4 localities that are not part of the fall line. We would provide an update on the prioritization process that in the interim period, the fall line and the non-fall line jurisdictional priorities would be the most impactful according to the authority's direction. And then I think the key point here is under items 2C, we would work with TAC and finance to develop a letter that could come from the authority, identifying any additional funds that would be needed to finalize the funding of those priority projects, the fall line and the essentially the rural jurisdiction priorities, and any remaining funds that would not be captured under those 2 full fiscal years of CVTA revenues. Mr. Chair, I can stop at any time for questions, or do you want me to go through the rest of it?
Yeah, let's pause for a second and see if there's any questions on what you've presented thus far.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Joe.
so just for clarification, so application requests are not going to be solicited from localities in this go round?
Yes, that's a great question, Joe. And when I started off, it was probably unclear, but I said we'd come back after discussing this fall timeline with a 1B. And I think that's a next step in terms of soliciting applications. I think my expectation is that would still happen this first year, but the priority would be for the fall line and the rural projects at this point.
Thank you. I understand that. If you could just scroll up then, and I'm not questioning or challenging the process, just trying to clarify it so I understand. So what would then be the purpose of scoring in the very first step, scoring and ranking all projects? Why would we go through that step if we're really focusing on fall line and then the 4 rural allocations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that quickly. I think that the benefit of scoring and ranking all projects now is that it makes sense because we're only talking about the first 2 years of revenue, that we want to have a full understanding of where all the projects land. Because I would hope that TAC would be able to come back maybe in January to consider all 6 years and the full budget available for funding through the entire 6-year process, which would mean we have 4 more years to consider all those projects that are scored and ranked that aren't fall line or rural priorities. Does that make sense? And maybe we would entertain the other applications in the first quarter of 22.
Yes, I understand. I was muted a second ago, but I understand. Thank you.
Chad, I have a question on the scoring. Are you proposing and using the scoring process for the long range plan that's slightly different than what was approved for the CVTA regional, or are you be using that one?
My proposal is to use the scoring from the LRTP, but use the modified scoring to reflect the different percentages of the performance metrics that were approved in the framework.
Okay, so it's essentially the framework wins
Yes.
on it. Okay.
But we wouldn't. I don't suggest rerunning the model for additional projects at this time, just due to time constraints.
Understood.
Yep.
Other questions?
This is Mark. Just a quick question, just for a clarification. Chet, you had mentioned that there was still kind of ongoing effort on VDOT relative to the fall line trail. I think unless we hear updates from localities beyond the information that we had prior, the work that we had presented previously kind of stands as is. I know we are working with some localities that are considering some alignment adjustments, but until and unless those change, the information that we presented before kind of stands as is. There's not additional work underway. We're simply responding to any changes that come to us that would include any funding status changes or anything that would be considered that way. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
Mark, this is Todd. Thank you for that clarification. So to confirm the information, including the cost estimate and the committed funding for the fall line that Shane Mann presented in September, I think, to the full authority, that's still the numbers that y'all are using?
That is correct. And again, we will certainly keep that updated as we hear or become aware of any changes that are requested. But at this point, there have been no changes to update the information that was presented in September.
Okay, thank you.
So
Mr. Chair,
Todd, this is, oh, go ahead, Diana.
oh, thanks, Tressa. Mr. Chair, if I could direct this to Mark, I know the city of Richmond has been working on some things, and I haven't heard back from VDOT that that aren't reflected in the September numbers. So as I felt that as you gave your disclaimer that I needed to ask where the updated numbers for our alignment changes were.
We're still waiting on the alignment changes from you, Dorana. At this point, the last time we had talked, there were alignment considerations, but the decision on the alignment had not been made yet. We can certainly provide an update to the estimate numbers once we know what the alignment changes are going to be. But I know that you were still waiting on that decision to be made on the city side. So we were under the understanding that we were waiting on you.
Okay, I'll send you another email because that isn't where we were, but okay, thanks.
So what has the city made a decision on the alignment at this point? Because
I mean, again, I can talk to you about it offline.
Okay, that sounds great. We'd be happy to.
And Mark, again, as you get any updates from Diana or others, please loop me in, because we're kind of having some sidebar conversations internal to the county on what the numbers all look like. So
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely keep you up to date.
Mr. Chair,
yes, Jessa.
so is there a cutoff date that we can give the city and VDOT so they can work towards if we've got to get the letter out to ask for our dollars to the governor? If we can give them a date to work towards, that might be good.
I think if I remember from glancing at this, Chad, I think you have that further down in your list here.
Yes, sir. We would like to take action at the November 10th or the November round of meetings. So for some reason, I don't have the November TAC meeting on here, but that would be my recommendation, is that we're able to take action on moving the budget and priority projects forward at that point. So we would need the estimates to be done ideally 2 weeks ahead of time at least, so everything can be assembled.
So the November TAC meeting is scheduled for the 8th, Monday, 2 days before the Finance Committee.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Does that answer your question, Chessa?
Yes, so the numbers, the dollars need to be finalized 2 weeks before the 8th, which would be October 25th. Ish, if you wanted to have time to, yeah.
So first half of the week of the 25th. So that's roughly 2 weeks out from now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, Dorana, y'all probably have the most moving parts at this point as far as fall line. Is that a reasonable time frame for you?
At the 20 what? I'm sorry.
The week of the 25th. So roughly 2 weeks out.
Todd, this is Rhonda in Charles City. Does
Yes.
that include the localities that are not impacted by the Fall Line Trail and the projects that we would like to see funded?
Yes, and actually I was going to circle back to chat on that. So thank you for bringing that up. So I know there's been conversations collectively with Charles City, New Kent, Goochland, and Powhatan on projects that they may be interested in using or leveraging CVTA regional funds for this first round that are eligible. So, Chad, I assume we need that project information and estimates in that same timeline.
Yes, sir. That would be ideal. And we have had, as you mentioned, we've been talking at least conceptually with each jurisdiction about what those projects might be. But yeah, we would want to compile the project details, at least at the level that we're considering for the fall line, in terms of overall planning level costs, those kinds of things as we move forward. But yeah, same timeline.
So, and I'm not disagreeing, but I guess that's a somewhat parallel but separate process than the letter to the governor, correct? Or is that all going to be kind of lumped in?
I think that's probably a discussion above my pay grade, but I don't know whether the authority wants to consider how the authority wants to consider this combination of projects, whether it's all considered in the. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good discussion to have.
So I guess our question back to you, Rhonda, as well as New Kent, Goochland, and Powhatan, is that a reasonable time frame for y'all to have some numbers and project information together?
Yeah, I don't know. I just went through the list of attendance to see if Shane Mann was in attendance. We are working with VDOT to develop our cost estimate. So I can't answer you. I mean, all I can do is reach out after the meeting and provide some feedback.
Sure. So
the same projects we're submitting for October 29th RVA TPO deadline. So it should work. You know, I don't know.
Todd, if I may.
yes, Mark.
Rhonda, Shane had asked me to reach out to you to schedule a time where we could meet to assist you with that, and I'll reach out to you this afternoon to get a time on the calendar where we can help you out. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, this is Mike Campbell.
Yes, Mike.
The information that Goochland County provided you via email, that's sufficient, correct, for these purposes, or would you need something additional?
When did you send it?
Yeah, it was probably, I would say, a couple weeks ago, week and a half ago, easy. I'm not sure.
All right. Yeah, I was out last week. I did forward what you had previously sent to me to Chet. So we can revisit that and see if that's sufficient. As I recall, the one I saw, you were still working on finalizing some numbers.
Yeah, I think we what we sent over was our final request.
Okay.
Yeah, for because I know we kind of had a back and forth about what was expected.
Right.
So yeah, I guess after sometime offline, we just need to confirm that the information I sent is good enough.
All right, very good. And New Kent and Powhatan, I think I had information from Powhatan that I did share with Chet. So
yeah, so same as Goochland, is just let us know if anything more is needed. Otherwise, if that's okay, then I think we sent in what we needed.
okay. So Chet, you and I can touch base to see if what we have is sufficient.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Justin, we may need to follow up with you about New Kent's priorities.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to reach out to VDOT as well, just to make sure on one item, but we'll get those to you and Todd as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, want to roll through the rest of the timeline here, Chet? Unless there's any other
Yes.
questions.
So we are moving, so October 29th is our next full board meeting. Remember, we don't have a board meeting in November, so they'll meet on the 29th and then they'll meet again December 3rd because of holidays. So that's the timeline for decisions to be made. So on October 29th, I don't think we're going to be ready for any actions, but we'll certainly provide an update to the full authority on everything that TAC and Finance has been working on, including basically everything we've discussed today. And then prepare for the November TAC and Finance Committee meetings about making final budget and project recommendations. The November TAC and Finance meetings, there will be individual actions that will be necessary to move that forward, recommendations on project lists, for example. And then we'll work towards the December 3rd authority meeting with action from the authority on the fall line needs, as well as an associated letter to the governor regarding additional assistance needed from the state, allocations to the non-fall line localities of regional money, and then how that flow of funds will need to take place to VDOT, to localities, et cetera, to move these projects forward. So that will, I believe, will be probably something that will come out of Finance Committee in terms of a recommendation. And then I think that's it for this general outline. I think coming back then to what Joe mentioned earlier about additional projects and applications, my expectation is that in order to fill out the full 6-year plan cycle, we would need to then consider first of the year to come back and see beyond the fall line and the rural priorities that were submitted, what the next round of projects would be, and score and rank and all that stuff. Hence why we suggested scoring everything now. So we'll have that ready for us to consider as we take the next steps.
I think there is an interest from some localities to be able to leverage on the next round of the SMART scale. So that would be a pretty compressed timeline. But if we have a lot of the front end work done already, then hopefully January would work.
And we heard this morning that pre-apps are available in March, I believe.
And then the final applications are due.
I'm guessing summer, but maybe Mark can clarify that.
If I could successfully get myself off of mute. Yes, that schedule sounds right. We will confirm that. My understanding is that is correct, but we'll confirm if there's any changes.
All right, thank you, Mark. I guess I have a question regarding, Chad, if you can go back down to the bottom.
Yep. Sorry.
So I guess the governor's budget looks like it's going to be released by mid-December-ish. So I don't know when they need, I guess, input from the authority on any consideration in that budget decision process. If we have on here December 3rd would be authorization to send the letter. So if that's sufficient time for receipt and consideration on their end as far as the budget process.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mr. Chair. I think if at all possible, if we could have an interim report on the October 29th agenda to at least kind of lay out what the numbers are expected to be, we could then give the governor's office a heads up and let them know what to expect officially.
I think that's probably a good approach. So that goes back to that same timeline of end of this month. If we have all the numbers on both what's funded and what's not funded, and any revised cost estimates for both the 4 rural localities as well as Fall Line.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry to you go ahead.
I think that brings this my part to a close. I think that the things we would like to have coming out of today's meeting is approval for staff to move forward with scoring and ranking the projects with the revised framework percentages for each of the performance metrics, and then provide. We can do this whenever the scoring is complete. We can go through and provide the outputs back to TAC for review, and then work with finance to develop a budget to see where everything matches up.
All right. So are you going to potentially present a revised version of this for the finance committee tomorrow? Kind of loop them in?
Yes.
All right. We can talk offline about a couple of adjustments. At a minimum, we probably need to add the November TAC meeting on here.
Yes, absolutely. That's my oversight. I apologize.
No worries. Any other questions, comments, concerns, input? All right, not hearing any. We all have some work to do. Where do we need to pick up on this, Chet?
I'm gonna go back to the agenda. All right, did that work? So we're still under item 6. This is an information item, but I didn't hear any concerns about staff going ahead with the revised scoring and preparing that list. And that's our next steps. We'll talk about the outline to present to finance tomorrow. And I'll work with the chair on revising that as needed to add those additional items, and take our next steps to work towards the end of October, getting cost estimates completed. And staff will send out communications to each of the 4 rural jurisdictions about what we need and where things stand. So just please be looking out for that communication. And I think we're close. I don't think there's a lot of work left to do, and I appreciate everybody's help with this.
Very good. So before we wrap that up, any final comments or questions? All right. Well, then we figured it out. So I guess you don't need any formal direction from TAC to take this forward to finance committee tomorrow, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So next item 7, CVTA member memorandum of agreements.
So this is just a real brief update. We have most of the agreements in hand. We are working on the final 3, and I think they're all in various forms of completion. The first set, all but those final 3, are in the hands of the chair, and I believe he is set to sign those today. Is that right, Todd? So we will work to get him all of them as soon as we've received the completed signature pages, so that we can get that finalized and buttoned up. We'd like to have that back, obviously, as soon as possible, but we're working with each member jurisdiction to make that happen.
We can talk after this meeting. I just want to make sure any of them that we're aware of that he has in hand to sign that can be done today while he's here.
Okay.
All right, any questions on this item? All right, next item 8, CVTA TAC member comments. Does anybody have any comments for the group? All right, hearing none, our next TAC meeting will be Monday, November 8th, same time, and we will continue to be 100% virtual. So hopefully nobody had any issues getting on today. And sounds like we will be following this format going forward. So I guess the day of, we'll be sending out the registration email, or are you going to send that out ahead of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, if you don't mind, can I take a minute to provide an update on the process?
Yes, please.
So we are now using Zoom Webinar, which provides the ability for anyone to register and attend these meetings, which gives us some functionality with the Q&A buttons and having attendees be able to participate more than sending an email in advance of the meeting. So what the process is, and we've had some issues as we've started to roll this out over the last month or so, is that you will receive an email roughly 2 weeks before the meeting, anywhere from 2 weeks to 7 days, with the information about the meeting. And in that email will be a link to the meetings page, as well as a link to register for the webinar. Everyone has a responsibility to register yourself. So we will not be sending out links to join the meeting. Once you go in and register, you will be sent a link that you will be sent a calendar item from Zoom that you can add to your calendar. And this, in the long run, should increase the ability for members of the public to participate, for people to have different ways to be involved in the meetings. Obviously, as long as we're able to do virtual meetings, this is the case. So it's very similar to if you were registering for a trade show, a webinar, or some online training. Very similar process. So hopefully it's not foreign to most of us here. You will be getting emails from, I believe it's either directly from Janice with the information in it, or it will be from cvta@planrva.org. Hopefully that is not in your spam list, but if it is, I'd suggest maybe checking and seeing if it's there. And that'll make sure that those meeting information and emails come directly to your inbox. We're doing the same thing with the other organizations, with the TPO, with Plan RVA and others. So similar process across all the different boards.
Very good, thank you. So if there's no other items, we can adjourn. Although before we do that, Chet, you needed to have a follow-up conversation with myself and the vice chair. Do we need to do that through a separate meeting platform, or can we stop recording and just stay on here?
We can do that. Sure. That's a good idea.
Dorena, are you available to hang on for a minute?
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Chet, do I